Last year, we made 50 grand. And this year, it has to be 100. And it will be if everybody does exactly what I told them to do. or, I'll get the staff to give donations to make up the difference. Checklist. Let's make a checklist.
And what did you say, my friend? Yeah? Mm-hmm.
You are beautiful, Karen Smith. You are beautiful.
And he just walked away.
Mr. Smith did it again. The fundraiser is on us and everything is chaos. This obviously wasn't thought through. The choir should already be here for the dress rehearsal. Even the chairs are not here.
Keynote speech by principal. Check. Pick up the choir. Karen, not gonna happen. If you want something done, you should do it yourself. Why doesn't everybody else just pitch in the way I do?
And you want me to help you?
There's gonna be 1,000 people. Oh. I hope I can beat the band. Gotta look good, gotta look good. Oh dear, I still have to pick up the cupcakes. Oh, gotta go.
At least the technicals is sorted because I sorted it myself 2 weeks ago. I fear the event may be a failure, but if everyone stays on budget like I planned it, we will make money.
Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to help you out this afternoon. I'm assisting with the school's fundraiser. Mrs. Smith asked me to welcome the guests, and I promised I would help serve tea, and I still need to set up the station and buy groceries. I'm sorry, Mashle. I hope you're not mad at me. Maybe I can help you afterwards? Okay. Yes, I'll help you afterwards. Okay, bye. I really need to learn how to say no to people. Okay, but I really need to help her. She's been going through such a rough time.
I have to pick up the choir at 6 o'clock.
Well, we saw them demonstrating the behavior and characteristics, personality of the 4 types. Now, we've discovered that we have D, I, S's, and C's in this audience and all across Africa and the world. What does it mean to be a D, I, S, and C? Well, I want you to write on that page with the cross, and I'd like you to write here in the corner, D, I, S, and C. D, I, S, and C. The D's and the C's are on this quadrant, and to them, task is more important than at the bottom, people. So if you're an I or an S, you gravitate towards people. If you're on the left-hand side, the C or an S, you like to respond. If you're on the D or the I side, you like to initiate. So the D initiates towards task, the I initiates towards people, the S responds to people, and the C responds to task. So the school principal, what was he? He was a task person that initiated projects. So we remember here Peter, the school principal. Who was the excitable person, the I, that initiated towards people? Karen. So Karen was the I. Who was the S, the social steady person, the supportive person, the calm person? Zanele. And obviously that leaves us with Patrick, the high C, that was more correct and focused on quality. So the D, let me tell you a few things about the D. We call him the doer. They're the people of action. They can't stand inaction. The I's are the initiators. They are the excitables. They take initiative. The S are the social, steady people. And the C's are the correct people. This person wants quantity, a lot of it. This person wants to do it right. This person wants lots of relationships and people. This person wants quality relationships and people. This person is a talker, the I. The S is a listener. The D is the initiator towards task. The C is the quality person. But he's a critical person. He analyzes things. The D lives in the now. There's always a sense of urgency. The I lives in the future. The S, they kind of just live in what we call the present. And the C, they primarily sometimes live in the past because they analyzed what happened. What is the emotion of the high D? Well, they get irritable or they get if you waste their time. So they're impatient. If they're too impatient, they will even show what? Anger. The high I, what is the emotion here? They're positive. Happy people. But they can also, if they are disappointed, they can be very sad. They're emotional high and low. The S emotion is stable. Stable emotions. Now, who's high S here? Although you have stable emotions on the outside, inside it can be really boiling. But they don't project emotion. The high C's, their emotion is they fear being wrong or criticized. Their emotion is to be careful. A D has a sense of urgency. An I has a sense of future optimism. An S is relational. A C is analyzing. If you ask a D, how are you doing? They're interested in what's happening now, urgency. If you ask an I, how is he or she doing? They tell you about something in the future. They don't care how things are now. They're excited about what's going to happen. Then the S, if they are going well, it's the relationships that's going well. Everything can be nice on this campus. If you had a big fight with your child or your boss or with your fellow workers, you are bothered here today. Because your world is where you have relationships that's intact. And the C, they want a world that's orderly. They're happy in that kind of world. The D wants goals. If you want to know how a D works, he's always talking about goals. The I is talking about opportunity, potential. That's what they're about. The S is talking about family and relationships. And the C, they want to talk about facts. An I has never seen a fact. They don't know what facts are. Now, you may differ. We're all a combination of these things, aren't we? So I'm D and I, so I'm doing things and I have a view to the future about it. My wife is SC, so she's relational, not with just many people, but with specific people. And she also wants to do things with quality. She's a SC. Some of you are CI, you're a little bit of conflict inside of you, because you're excitable, but you want to do things correct. So tell the person next to you who you are, and tell him, I think I'm primarily this, and forget about what the test said. The test was just an indicator about that environment that you thought about. Remember I told you to think about an environment? You may be in other environments where you have different behavior. So forget about the test a little bit. Just based on what I said, what do you think you are primarily and maybe secondarily influenced by? Turn to the person next to you and say that to him or her. I hope you've discovered how you fit. And I hope you're happy with who you are, because let me tell you, God made you in a wonderful way. If you're a high D, a low D, a high I, low I, S or C, doesn't matter. God loves you, has a plan for your life, and He planned the mix that you are in, because there's good works, there's a path, there's a calling, there's a role that God created you for, and your personality style is 100% correct for that. Keep that in mind. I'm going to go now to the strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to explain the strengths and weaknesses of every personality type. So you want to know how a D, an I, or an S, or a C talks and greets, because you want to figure out how they are. If you typically greet a high D, he's going to have a forceful greeting. I want to give you a tip. If you ever greet a high D and you do this, like a soft hand, most Ds will write you off right there, because high Ds like someone that shows confidence. So if you want to impress a high D, how do you greet him? Forcefully. He feels respected, and he respects you. If you greet a high S, and you greet him forcefully, and you crush his hand, how does a high S feel? Wow. That's not good. So you need to greet a high S how? Kind of warm, gently. If you greet a high I and you say, "Hi, how are you doing?" They want a hug, they want excitement. How are you doing? So please don't give emotion to a high I. True or false? True. They don't want to just be calm. And a high C, very important, just correctly. Keep the distance. Just do it culturally appropriate. Right? Now, how do we greet people? We greet people based on how we are. Okay, so if you want to be effective, understand yourself, but understand others. That's it. I promise you, 99% of you greet people the way you like to be greeted. We're going to give you ways to have immediately a positive people interaction with new people. If you can sum them up. Now, how do you know if they're D, I, S, or C? Well, if they talk slowly and they talk and they pace their talk, are they an I? So you know, okay, you don't have to give enthusiasm yet. As a matter of fact, if you give a high C, a lot of excitement and so on, you could literally intimidate that person. So you look at how the person is in terms of emotion. A high S person, a relational person, they also listen more. Remember Zanele on the phone? Did she talk all the time? No, she listened with empathy. Right? And so if you greet a high S like this, "Hello, how are you doing?" "Hi, and how are you doing?" How does the high S feel if you greet and move on to the next person? You didn't even make eye contact. You don't care. High S's care. So high S's, you need to say, hello, sister. How are you today? Good. And how's the children? They good? Fantastic. It's great to have you here. Right? Great to have you here. Now have we connected? Right? The high D, he wants to get to business. He doesn't like small talk. True or false? He'll do it, but he wants to get out of the small talk. He wants to get into the why we are here, the what. Right? You don't, as a matter, do you think by asking him relational questions, you're helping yourself with him? No, you're wasting his time, right? He wants to be efficient. The C, be correct, the I, enthusiasm. So you're going to have D, I, S, and C's. You're getting a feel for who you are, what you like and don't like? Okay, now strengths and weaknesses of the D, I, S, and C. So the high D, what is the strength of a high D? And I'd like you to start evaluating yourself because all of you have D in you. Are you with me? Unless you have no D. I just saw someone here in front that tested out with no D, so they're not going to identify a lot with this. So remember in your test, if you had like 4 or 5, then there are some D in you. So don't think of yourself as I'm just a D or an I. You're a combination really of all 4 things. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, but here's the typical high D. Their strength is to get things done. It's to be persistent. They take charge. They accept challenges. They make quick decisions. They solve practical problems. They're self-reliant and they work hard. But weaknesses, they do have a few tendencies that can get to some of us. They can become over as insensitive, overlook risk and caution. They can take on too much. They have a high self-esteem, so they say yes to many things. They can be demanding of others. They can be impatient, inflexible. Now, detail-wise, does a high D care about a lot of detail? They don't care. They just want to know what. And they can resent restrictions. If you did tell a high D what he can't do, like yesterday, I have a little bit of D in me, and so someone said to me, no, Martin, we can't get that done. When they say we can't get that done, or we can't get that done in the next 2 weeks, what do you think that does to me? Does that like, okay, I understand, that's wonderful. Or do I actually get motivated to get it done and get it done quicker? So if a high D wants to get things done and quick, it doesn't help telling me that can't be done. You actually just motivate them. Do you understand that? And he's thinking of ways to get there. And he'll cut corners to get there. But they want to get things done, and they want to get it done now. Now, same thing is true with the I. They have strengths and weaknesses. The high I can be very optimistic. We need people like that, particularly in Africa. It's not going to be good being pessimistic all the time. You may be, we like optimists. Personable. They articulate. They like to use their mouths, their voice, their tongue. They're good talkers. They're entertaining. They're enthusiastic. They will die on an island. They need people. If you don't give an I people, they don't know what to do. Right? If your I is low, you like solitude. If you did that test and you had no I, then you see these advertisements with the guy on the palm tree with a little island, and you think that's heaven. For a high I, that looks like hell. There's no people there, okay? The high I likes to persuade. They like to make a good impression. They're outgoing and friendly, but they have weaknesses. They can lack follow-through. They say yes to many things. They want to be popular. They can talk too much. They can act impulsively. They can overcommit. They can misjudge capabilities. They can jump to conclusions. And they can be verbally manipulative. So we looked at the D and the I, the people that initiate. They have strengths and weaknesses. And we look at the S and C. They have strengths and weaknesses. The people bother us here what they do. Sometimes they bother us here by what they don't do. But I love S&Cs. I married an S&C lady called Annelie. And her qualities so attracted me. It was going to complement and help me. And what I loved about Annelie is all the S strengths and the C ones. She has some D in her, but the S and C, I love that as well. She is supportive. And S is loyal. They're consistent people. They're not this day, that way. They're more stable. The high I's are all over the place. The S, if you're an S and an I, your S will mellow you a little bit. So you'll agree with both things, and that influences it. Reliable. They're agreeable. They're service-orientated. They love to help. They're the glue in an organization or a team. They're great listeners. That's why they make great counselors. My daughter is an SI. She wants to be a missionary and meet lots of people. That's the I in her. But she's also an S. She wants to help people, and she's going to study psychology because they're also good listeners. So the I and the S, sometimes inside of them, it fights a little bit because they're not sure if they want to talk or listen. But they have skills in both areas. And an S is good in building relationships. Now the C's. The C's, we really need C's because their strengths are building blocks for society. They do things orderly. They are self-disciplined. They're thorough, they're analytical. They're competent people. They don't wing things. They learn their skill. They know how to do it. They're precise. The C in them makes them, although they task people, the C in them, if you're a high C, you're often a very diplomatic person. One of my colleagues, Lee Helling, is a DC. So he's a task person, but he's an extreme diplomat because C's bring finesse to the task relationship. And they know that for this relationship to work well, it has to be diplomatic. So they sometimes have excellent people skills, although they're task-orientated. They are committed to quality. That's why if you rush a high C, how do they feel? Frustrated. Remember when I did that test? The D's here were bored at some point because they've done this thing. The C's, they were struggling a little bit with the test. Why? Because they want to do it what? Correct. They want to do it right. Now, some of the I's thought that they're not so clever because why are they taking so long? Because the I is just da-da-da-da-da. No, they're actually more clever than you often. It's because they want to be right. So careful how you think of other people. My wife's a high C. She was a top student. Now, the high C's have weaknesses as well. Now, I don't like talking about the high C weaknesses because they are already tough on themselves. High C's don't need criticism. They criticize themselves all the time. And their tendencies, they can be overly cautious. They can be too rigid. They can lack spontaneity. They're very sensitive to criticism, particularly if you criticize their work. If you criticize the high I, their person, they don't like it. If you criticize a high C's work, they don't like it at all. They can be too detail-orientated. Too much planning, not enough action. They can be fault-finding, suspicious, or pessimistic. They think of themselves as realistic. The I's would think of them as what? Pessimistic. So here you have DI, S, and C. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. By the way, is there such a personality that only has strengths? No, because the strength, the backside or the flip side of the strength is the weakness. Are you with me? You can't be excellent with task, project, and be excellent with relationships in a paced way. It's not possible. Do you get that? Now, you can become mature and learn how these things work. Now, let's say you're a great Christian. Do you lose all the weaknesses in your personality? No. That's why you still need the Lord, right? But sometimes you just need other people to accept you, not just your strengths, but your weakness. So when you think of other people, if the relationships are good, you are enjoying the strengths. If the relationship has gone sour, you have started to focus on the weaknesses. right? And think about yourself. Now, last thing about the high C. Like my wife is a high C. So if she writes an exam, she's about a 95% C. So if she gets 80% for a test, how does she feel? She just got minus 15 from her standard. She's depressed. She wants 100 or 95 to 100, then she's okay. Now my C is about 20 to 40, depending on the context. So if I get 80, how do I feel? So why do I have a good self-image? Because my standards are so low, right? It's easy to feel happy about myself, right? Some of the high C's, you feel bad about yourself. The only reason is your standards are so high, okay? It's not that you're worse than me or the other person. Is that true or false? Okay. So, okay, tell the person next to you, what is the most interesting thing that you just heard in the last 5 minutes? Okay, friends, what I'd like you to do is a little bit of self-evaluation now. You're going to see a chart, understanding my unique strengths and weaknesses. And I'd like you to identify your 2 high points and just circle that one, like the D, the I, the S, or the C. And then I'd like you to do a personal evaluation. Because you are a combination, your strengths and weaknesses are kind of tempered by your other personality trait or traits. So I don't want to put you in a box. No one is just a D, an I, an S, or a C. Are you with me? No one is just that. So I'm going to let you decide what strengths and weaknesses you agree with. I want you to, if you really agree with what is under D, let's say driving, logical, independent, daring, decisive, direct. If you agree with something, you underline it. If you disagree totally, I'm not like this, you scratch it out. And if you're not sure, you put a question mark. And then on the weakness side, you do the same. Let your wife or friend tell you about this one, okay? But do a little bit of a self-assessment on your 2 high points. Then we're going to go into the break. And you're just going to do self-reflection on who you are, your strengths and weakness. And then I want you to do 2 things. Remember what we said in session 1. God gave you your strength so that you would praise him. I mean, you're not that way because you're cute. You're that way because God created you. You are a tool in the hands of God. It's not, this is how you were made. So thank God for the strengths. And then acknowledge the weaknesses and ask the Lord to help you. But accept them as well. It's okay to have weaknesses. Tell the person next to you, it's okay to have weaknesses. Remember, you can't have high strengths. People that have very, very high strengths, also their weaknesses are a little bit more. If you did that test and you kind of scored more balanced, even out, then your strengths are not as pronounced, but your weaknesses aren't that wild either. You look at it and you do the self-evaluation.